Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from the Hub, here today with our friend Sharon from the WellSpan Wellness Center. Hello there, friend.
Hi, Kelly. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Remember, Sharon is our friend who talks about all things. We're talking about smoking cessation and addiction and trauma-informed care and all that kind of stuff. And we've really sort of like run the gamut of all the fun things that we've talked about. Remember last week, and I'm bringing this up because I've talked about this a lot over the past 2 weeks, because actually last week Sharon had some stuff to do. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the road to wellness, and what has stuck in my head since we spoke last was wellness is not perfection. Wellness does not mean disease-free. Wellness means you're making choices to improve rather than not to improve. And so I've been thinking about that because people are like, oh, I'm doing wellness. And I'm like, are you doing wellness? Are you really? And I've been really thoughtful about, like, what does the road to wellness mean? And like, does it mean you have to get new clothes to go on the road to wellness? Because a lot of people will sell you new clothes so that you can be well. And so I've been very thoughtful about that for the past couple of weeks. Today, we're in that same vein, and we're talking about trauma-informed care, which is fascinating because we've been talking about that this whole time and no one knew.
Absolutely.
So why do we have this title of trauma-informed care? What is it?
Well, the title came about by somebody. I don't even know that, because there have been pockets of performing and doing trauma-informed care for a long time. But now the beauty is it's become a little more organized. And what does it mean? Trauma-informed care means that the person is more important in the interaction, that you want to provide safety for people. You want to provide an opportunity for them to trust you, to trust the process that they're in. You want to give them choice. That is so important.
Yeah.
And when you talk about wellness and the road to wellness, it's all about choices along the road.
Yep.
And the choices are yours.
Yep.
So it makes you feel more empowered. I make the choice. Back to should versus could.
Yep.
Could is trauma informed. Should is not.
Right, because you could do this or you could do this. So you are making a choice along the path about what's happening next. I think what's fascinating about trauma-informed care is that a lot of people say the words and they have no idea what it means, and they think it means someone else, like, something else.
Absolutely.
I think they like victim a lot of people. If you don't know
Absolutely.
what it is, they make it about victims.
What might make it really simple is there's a question you ask in trauma-informed care. And that question is, what happened to this person? Where the old system is, what's wrong with this person? Think of the kids in school that don't do what they're supposed to do. What's wrong with that kid? What's wrong with the parents? What's wrong?
Yep.
Rather than what happened. Maybe what happened is somebody died. Maybe what happened is somebody lost their job and they have to move, or maybe they're homeless. So when you look at the what happened, it changes the whole dynamic of how we interact with people. And if
that's every single person that you come in contact with in your entire universe.
Yes.
Right? You're driving down the road, someone cuts you off. What's wrong with that? No.
Yeah.
What happened to them?
And what happened to them to make them act in a way that's inconsiderate? What happened to them that makes them be unthoughtful? Rather than that person, give them a stupid sign. Right. So, this saying, you can't fix stupid. Well, okay, that's kind of derogatory. Because
that's awful mean.
Looking at what is the backstory, and we may never know. And what we have to do internally to say, I don't like their behavior. Their behavior wasn't appropriate. That's theirs. They own that. But if I start judging that, then I own that judgment. So trauma-informed care really works towards, through education, through letting people know, we want to ask the question, what happened to that person? If they cut us off, it's not because they don't like us and we're bad people.
Right.
It's because something happened to them that in that moment, they're not being very thoughtful.
Right.
Now, is it wrong? Probably. Could it cause an accident? Probably.
Right.
So I'm not saying that we say the behavior is okay.
Right, because that's what a lot of people get to. They're like, are you saying that you're going to excuse all this bad behavior because something bad happened to them in the past? And the answer is no.
No. The difference now would be, what we want to do is help them deal with what happened to them so the behavior will change internally permanently.
Right.
And that's why they learned, all the people that go to prison, 70% of the people in prison right now are there because of a drug-related offense. So people say, okay, let's just take the drugs away from them and they'll be fine. Well, they can't have drugs.
Not it. Right.
Exactly.
Right, that's not it.
But
right, that means you're only going, so like, here's the problem, and you're only going here. You really have to go down here in order to be able to understand it. And so you're like, oh, this is easy. Okay, it's not that easy, but it's also not that hard. Dig a little deeper. Now we can figure out what the root of this is and solve it at the root issue. Right.
And then we don't have the constant repetitive behavior that's up here. And that takes time, and people want instant results.
Right, because if you say, let's just get rid of drugs, that will solve the problem. Okay, but that has nothing to do with it.
Right.
So those two things don't have anything to do with each other. It really means, so then why is trauma-informed care important then? Because, so we talked about what it is and what it isn't. So why is it important to do it? Like who cares? Like, why is it important?
It improves mental health. It improves physical health. People are more likely to, if they're in a medical environment that practices trauma-informed care, and they feel that they are collaborating with their healthcare practitioner, that they trust their healthcare practitioner, and that their choices are respected, they are more likely, and this is research-based, they are more likely to adhere to medical advice. Use their insulin, take their medication, change their diet, exercise, because they don't feel shamed about what's wrong with them.
Right.
It
Not
improves
what's wrong, it's what happened.
Exactly. And it improves in the classroom because you see that child as needing more support, and not like more support in the special education world,
right,
but more support. Maybe they need help dealing with their adverse experiences. And it reduces absenteeism. It increases graduation rates. It increases the likelihood that girls won't get pregnant before they're out of high school.
Wow.
And it makes it easier in the classroom because you aren't always, what's wrong with this kid? I got to fix something.
Right.
And the parents are saying, you fix my kid. And the teacher's saying, well, you're the parents. And it avoids all of that.
Right.
And if you're shopping at, the local convenience store, you're going to greet people when they walk in. You're going to make sure the parking lot is lit up at night. Safety, physical safety and emotional safety. So it's far reaching. There's a town in Florida that's been collecting, they're the first community that became a trauma-informed community. And they've been collecting research now for about 11 years. And it is amazing. Crime reduction has reduced, drug use has reduced, all of that related to having a trauma-informed approach to the community.
Because it also improves your relationships.
And your self-respect.
Right. Right.
So when you respect yourself, you're going to be less likely to do some of those things
Right. Because,
that are
right.
like some of the illegal things, drugs or whatever, but you're also more likely to do things like take care of yourself, take care of your community. You're more likely to get engaged, to be connected, because now you feel like you have worth because you aren't shamed.
So why don't people want to do this more? Because what you said just then begs the question. So if we have research that shows that this is a good way to solve real systemic problems, why don't people want to do it?
Number one, it requires change. And it requires change at the personal level, not you fix it. I'm part of the solution, so I need to change. It also involves consistency, which is difficult, collaboration with each other, so we're all coming kind of from the same page, and it takes time. For a community to become trauma informed and start seeing these results, people don't want to wait 3, 4, 5 years. They get bored. They get discouraged.
Right. It has to happen by the next newspaper cycle or the next election cycle.
Exactly.
Or the next whatever cycle, so that it can be talked about, the next Facebook cycle.
And the other thing is that it's hard to say what hurts. It's hard to say my family wasn't perfect. It's hard to say, and people need to move away from blaming rather than looking at this is what happened as a result of what happened. It's like, flood comes through a town and this is what happened as a result of the flood.
Right.
Washed things away. Well, as a result of whatever caused the problems in the family, it happened. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't like I'm going to devastate this area, this person. It's what happened. So we need to be able to be honest about our lives.
Right, because when you do trauma-informed care, you're part of it. Whether you like it or not,
Exactly.
you have to examine you to be, because you are a player in this.
This is where that saying, be the change you want to see, is important. If you want to stop being judged, stop being judgmental. And look at what happened to them. Is there anything I can do to make the situation different? Maybe I can't, and maybe I can. And what can I be responsible for and not wait for someone else to fix it?
So it requires a lot of personal responsibility. It also requires a lot of organizational responsibility.
Absolutely.
And accountability.
Yes. And sometimes people aren't too happy about that. They want you to be accountable.
Right, but they don't want to be accountable. Right.
I'm going to make you accountable, and if you're not accountable, I'm going to get you fired or something.
Right, which is not how this works.
Exactly.
Not how that works. Yeah.
It's about
So when you talk about, and this is, we could talk about this for a month, but this is part of that conversation about Black Lives Matter. That this is about trauma-informed care. There is systemic racism, whether you like it or not, there is. That's not my opinion, that is a fact. And so in order to change that, you have to change what the system is. So you have to look at what the system is, and using trauma-informed care gets you to a place where you can examine that and then make systemic change. And that's just one example. We could talk about a million, and we have already.
I would push that one step further.
Excellent.
The root of systemic racism is systemic hatred. So hatred is about us. Hatred is about what I'm feeling, what I'm doing.
Right.
And if we can deal with that hatred, hatred usually comes from pain. People have been really hurt. But what if we could deal with that and the hatred went away? How many problems would that solve? But boy, we don't want to touch that one.
Right.
We all have it.
Right. Absolutely.
The lower self or human nature or something.
Right.
And we learn to suppress it and we learn to not own it. And then it comes out sideways. It's still there. Bullying. What's that about?
Right. And you know, you've talked before about it comes out in terms of substance abuse.
Yep.
You can't manage the pain another way. And so smoking helps that go away for a minute, or another kind of substitution. Too many chips help that go away for a minute, or, you
Yep.
know, whatever that is. And yeah.
Yep. And then I don't have to own the way I'm feeling.
Right. Because chips make me happy, man.
Yep.
So we can just chillax for a little bit because I got the chips, and then gone. And then you're like, oh, right.
Yes.
I still have the shame. I still have the pain. I still have all that stuff. And now I have other issues because I had too many chips.
Yeah. And that, you know, that reminds me of a saying in OA, Overeaters Anonymous. Face your stuff, don't stuff your face. And we aren't real good at doing that.
Nope. I mean, my yoga teacher used to say, and this is going to be a little bit of foul language for some people. She used to say, you got to sit in your shit. You got to sit there.
That's all you can control anyway.
Right. And that when you do that, you can get to a place, because you've got to not necessarily work it out, because people are like, I don't want to do the work, but you got to at least acknowledge what your stuff is.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Sharon, every time we learn something new. Every time. So thank you very much. This is truly, truly special.
Isn't that wonderful that we can still learn? I love it.
It makes me smile every time.
Okay.
Every single time. Thank you, my friend. Well, we will talk again next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, buddy.